just to introduce myself first at the start of this drawing class. My name is Rachel. I'm an alumni of Open University. I did both my BA and my Masters through the Open University, so I'm well acquainted with the amazing job the Students' Association does of curating events like this and just providing great resources for people to use. So hopefully this will be one in the same. I don't know what your experience of art is, whether you enjoy it, whether you think you're good at it, whether you think you're not good at it. Many of us maybe have only experienced art in school, which for me personally was not the best experience. I found it quite contrived, and there wasn't much room to express yourself because you were following a curriculum. So hopefully today we'll be able to explore how you can use art for yourself, for your own well-being, to give you a break from technology, social media, the TV, just give your brain some space to think. Particularly in this lockdown period, I myself have found getting back to drawing particularly good for helping me to relax. My job is in art now, and I mean, being at home with 2 young children, I've needed some time to just get a bit of space, and going back to sort of the basics has really helped me. So today we are going to do a series of life drawing style tasks. Don't worry, I'm not going to ask anyone to take their clothes off, although you're in your own homes, so if you wish to do that, feel free. It's going to be mainly around portraiture of the face, upper body, wherever you can put your mirror basically in relation to yourself. I've got my mirror, it's out of shot, so I'll probably be doing sort of head and top of the torso area. So the first task is, I'm not going to give you any instruction on this. I'm going to be drawing along as well. I have got an easel, but don't worry, most of the time I sit on the sofa, draw, leaning on a book on my knee, or worse, leaning on the screen of my laptop, which I do regularly. So all you need is just something to lean on, a mirror, and for now a pencil we'll use. So this first task is going to be just 2 minutes. You can get yourself in a position where you've got a hand gesture in there if you want to add a little bit more, just more action to the piece that you're going to draw. If you want to do just your face, that's totally fine. It's only going to be 2 minutes long, this one, so it's going to be a quick sketch just so that you can see where you're at and where you're starting from. So let's do that now. So as I'm doing it, I'm just glancing over, making very quick marks on the page. Keep looking back at where you're going. Try and get a general shape of the whole face if you can as you're doing this. Don't try to focus too much on the detail for now. Just look at the general shapes that you're seeing. You've got about 30 seconds left on this. Maybe 10 seconds more. Okay, and we'll call that there. So that's the first one. This is basically just so you can see where you're at now. Obviously I gave you no direction for that whatsoever. And that might have been quite daunting for some of you. Some of you might not have picked up a pencil for a very long time to draw. Some of you might not have looked at yourself so closely for a while in the mirror. As I said before, people's relationship with art and drawing can so often be tied to their childhood and what they were told. So many times when people see my artwork or just watch me draw, they say, oh, I can't draw, oh, I wish I could draw. Well, you can. Everyone can. It might be a different style. It might not be realistic. It might not be realism, but you can still draw. Everyone can draw. And so what I'd like you to do, or what I'd like to challenge you to do, is to change your perception of what you're good at and what drawing has to look like. It doesn't have to look like what your teacher says it has to look like. It doesn't necessarily have to even be in proportion, although I am going to talk a little bit about that. It's your own expectations, nobody else's opinion even has to matter. You can draw for yourself without having to even show anybody else, ever, if you don't want to. And that's what I'd like to encourage you to do today, to sort of get back into drawing as a method of relaxation and an outlet, really, because anyone can fold up a piece of paper and put it in their pocket when they're out and about. And I like to do that and just stop and draw occasionally. So this is what I managed within that 2-minute period. So as you can see, quite sketchy. That's the style I tend to do. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But as you can see, I've drawn very vague guidelines on this just because it was so quick. But basically, I've drawn a central line here, then a halfway down line, which I haven't actually followed, not even followed my own guideline there. Halfway down the face for the eyes. Now some of this is getting back to maybe school stuff. So halfway down, you'll have the eyes, then half of that, roughly, you'll have the bottom of the nose, and then half of that section, you'll have the bottom of the lips. So that's looking at the whole head, halfway down, eyes, half again, nose, half again, bottom of the lips. So that's one thing that you need to think about. But in terms of thinking about guidelines and looking at rulers and things like that, the biggest help for me actually when I was doing life drawing and just art in general over my life has been to draw what you see, not what you think you see. So that's the biggest challenge, I think, for a lot of us, in that we are so used to seeing things, particularly our own self and our own face, or even objects if you're doing a still life. You're so used to that object that it's tempting to draw what you think is there rather than looking at what is actually there. And it can feel quite alien, it can feel quite counterintuitive to draw what is actually there. But sometimes that is what makes it the most realistic, and once it all comes together, that's when you get a really good result. Okay, so the next task is we are going to do that same pose again. So if you had your hand up, if you were doing a gesture, if you had your, well, you wouldn't have had your arms crossed, you wouldn't be able to draw it. If you had your legs crossed, if you're doing a full pose, which is fine, do that same one again. But now just bear in mind what I've said in terms of those proportions. So half eyes, half again nose, half again lips, and then draw what you see, not what you think you see. So if you've always thought, oh, I've got a round face, don't just draw a round face. Look, see, is it round? Has it got undulations that you hadn't noticed before? Is your jaw maybe at a different angle? Has your face shape changed over the years? Those things can all be relevant in this. So just look again at your mirror. Again, some of you might be feeling quite uncomfortable doing this, looking at yourself in a mirror for so long, but I think that's part of it. That can be a really good thing to do in terms of just looking inwardly at oneself. Okay, so we're going to go on to task number 2. I'm going to give you 5 minutes to do this one. So let's go on that. Okay, so first on this, I am getting the general shape of my face. It's a little bit difficult whilst talking at the same time, but we'll give it a go. Drawing in the main shape of my jaw, trying to keep my head at roughly the same angle the whole time. If you are lucky enough to be in lockdown with someone, a partner or a family member, or even a friend, now we're allowed to create these bubbles, feel free to draw them if they are a willing model for you. It's so much easier to draw someone else, or draw from a photo if necessary. Although I do quite like the fluidity of an actual model. I think it adds to it quite a lot, particularly if you're doing a full life drawing session, which are quite commonplace now. If it's on the back of this you were interested in sort of getting back into art, there are lots of sessions run for adults in things such as life drawing. Sounds very scary, but all very discreet, very professional. I myself have been to a couple of sessions since leaving education, and I found it really good, and it's a great way to meet people. So we're just still going on this. It is quite good if you have jewellery, or like I have, I've put a headband in, kind of half for the purpose of today, just to add a little bit more just dynamics to the drawing. You could wear a hat. I think it just makes it a little bit more comfortable to draw when there are items within the composition as well as your face, because it can be quite daunting when you're drawing something that people are so used to seeing, I think. Even yourself. So I'm just putting my guidelines in now. Coming up to only about 30 seconds left on this. And that's your time done on that one. So, as you can see, this is, I'm hoping for yourself, it's a lot more defined than your first. Let me just get this piece up there. So that's what I've come up with there, which obviously has a lot more detail. I always tend to do the features last. I like to get the general overall shape first, really, when I'm working in this style. Some people prefer to start with the features, but I like to get the shape of the head right first, and then you're working within sort of the right composition on that one. The next thing we're going to do is looking at the style of the work. As you can see on this, I've done quite a sketch style. Again, that is something I like. You'll have noticed that on the list of equipment that you required, I didn't put a rubber and a razor, because I find that I like to challenge myself to not rub out anything when I'm drawing, unless it's absolutely necessary. I kind of like to work through the mistakes, work through the lines to get, you can see here on the shape of this jawline, took me a good few goes to get a shape that I was happy with. One of the things that I probably should have said at the beginning is, if I'm going too fast, or if you want to repeat something, feel free to pause, rewind, or this video is going to be up on the website, so you will be able to access it later if you want to revisit it and have a go at doing that again. So that's great. So yeah, feel free to go at your own pace if I'm going a bit too quick or speaking too quick, which as a northerner I tend to do quite a lot, I'm afraid. So the next task, we are going to use pen for this one. I'm just going to turn that over, I don't want to run out of paper. We are going to use pen, and what I would like you to do is focus in even more. So far we've been doing the face, or maybe the top of the torso. I'd like you to focus in on your favourite part of you. That's not necessarily the bit that you like the most, but the bit that compositionally you like the most for now. So it could be your jawline, it could be where your jaw meets your ear, it could be your hairline, if you like the way that that falls, it could be your nose, it could be the shape of your cheek, it could be the lips, it could be the neck going into the collarbone. And what I would like you to do for this is to use pen and use the sketch style that you've just seen that I used in my second task drawing. So it can be very flowy, very fluid, until you've got it right and you're happy with it. And the reason I want you to use pen is for that reason, just so that we're not eliminating the mistakes and erasing them, we are making them part of the piece and part of the style of the piece. So you're going to have 7 minutes for this one, so a little bit longer again. As you can see, we're progressing, having a little bit longer to think about it, looking at things like that. And again, I'll just remind you, draw what you see, not what you think you see. So really focus in on that, really look at the size of things in comparison to others. You might think that your earring, for example, is really big, but actually it's just the same size as the ear. Try and compare things to one another and think about that scale that we've talked about. So we're going to do that now, and yeah, use pen preferably. Thank you. Okay, so you can probably hear by my pen strokes how much I'm going over what I'm doing right now, and that's fine. I'm using quite an inky pen, but that's mainly because I'm doing it on an easel and I've got it upright. I quite like using a ballpoint pen, quite like the scratchiness of it, because you can almost get sort of a pencil line with a pen if you use it really lightly and gently, and then you can get a darker one obviously if you press on harder, so you can almost sketch out with a biro or a ballpoint pen and then go over it sort of with your preferred line, with a darker line. This one I can't do that so much, just because it's quite an inky one. But hopefully you get the idea. I did try with a biro when I was preparing for this, but it kept running out as I was using it upright. So you've only had about 2 minutes on this so far. Like I said, I'm going to go for maybe about 7 minutes. Hope this is giving you a chance to really focus in and just have a little bit of extra time to really refine those shapes that you're doing. Drawing yourself is actually quite a good preparation for drawing someone else, because professional life drawing models are excellent at keeping still, but trying to draw anybody else, they're not so excellent. So obviously by drawing yourself, you're constantly moving. Which can present its own challenges in making sure that you are back in exactly the same position, which is another benefit of why this sketch style is quite good for this, just because it almost, the medium itself just shows the fluidity of the model, in that you are constantly moving. You've had about 4.5 minutes, so 2.5 minutes left. Just a reminder to everyone, this is the reason we're doing this is for the enjoyment and to get back into trying things out. So don't be too hard on yourself, don't be putting pressure on yourself if you think it's not going how you want it to, or if it's not looking how you expected it to. Like I said, this is for you, no one else has to see it. It's one of the only benefits I see in this lockdown period, is that people have been able to try things that they've never tried before, revisit old hobbies that they've not done for a while that they might have been scared to do in a group. Online learning has been boosted massively, which obviously you're all aware of through doing the Open University anyway, but it seems that the wider world has been opened up to its benefits. Okay, just about 1 minute left. Okie doke. And if you just do your last couple of pen strokes now, that would be great. Okay, so this is what I've managed within that 7 minute period. As you can see, I kind of honed in on this area of my face, although struggled with getting the jawline right. I think maybe due to me talking the whole time I was doing it made it a little bit more difficult. The progression for this, and the final thing that we are going to do, is we are going to do a sketch style using pencil and then do the refinement using pen. You don't have to do that. If you enjoy doing this style in pen, feel free. But it's just a really easy way of getting to a more refined image. You can do the refinements in pencil if you wish, in a darker pencil. Again, I would encourage you to try not to rub anything out if you can. I know it's so tempting when we do a line that we don't think's quite right, but I would really encourage you not to, if possible. So I myself am going to do a sketch style in pencil and then do the refinements in pen. You can choose which medium you want to use, or just how far you get within this time frame. Obviously this isn't a stop. After this task is complete, you can carry on with this drawing if you want. I'm going to give you a couple of ideas of things that you can do afterwards. But yeah, I hope this has encouraged you that you can just have a go again and get back into doing it. So let's start that now. We're going to have 10 minutes on this last one. You can again find another pose if you want, find another position you want to be in. If you can see your whole body, feel free to do that. If not, I'm going to be doing just my face mainly because that's all I can see and where I've positioned my mirror. So yeah, let's crack on with that now. You may notice that it seems that I'm drawing without looking at the page, and that's because I am. It's sometimes quite helpful, I find, to just look at what you are drawing, particularly in the sketch stage, and just draw as if you are outlining on the mirror. So as if I'm drawing what is on the mirror, I'm just doing that same action on my page, which I find helpful. I'm sure that others would disagree with that, but I find it to be quite a helpful way to start my composition of my piece. So just to reiterate, get the shape of the face first if you can, and then once you've got the shape of the face, I tend to do the neck. Try and get the shoulders in place. And then once you've got the head in place, you can then draw your guidelines for where you're going to put the features. Obviously I've put timings on all of these tasks just so that we can see a bit of a progression, but you can work at your own pace. Like I said, you can pause and stop these videos. You don't have to be working in the time scale I am giving you. Particularly with this last piece, you could spend as long as you wish on it. Hours, days, weeks. I know many artists who take quite a long time to complete their work. Sometimes it is good to revisit things with fresh eyes. It's quite easy to get disheartened or feel like things are going wrong when you've been looking at the same piece for a long time. Feel like you're losing your way with it a little bit. But I think the main thing that I'd like you to draw out of today is just about having a go and maybe picking up that pencil again, because I know that loads of people enjoyed art when they were younger. I know a lot of people found it the favourite lesson, because it maybe felt like a little bit of a free-for-all, or they could get a bit messy with their paint, and then as time's gone by they've just stopped doing it because maybe they didn't have the equipment, or they just thought they weren't very good at it, or they didn't know what to draw. And so this is kind of just a little pick-up, again, to encourage you to just pick up a pen, and you've always got yourself, and I imagine most people have got a mirror. So even if you've not got a mirror, I'd encourage you to draw your hand or draw a part of your body that you can see, just to sort of get back into it and get back into the flow, because it is really relaxing. It's a good way of relaxing, as long as you don't put too much pressure on yourself and you don't put the pressures of other people on yourself. I've had about 4 minutes so far, so nearly halfway through on this. I think ears is one of the things that people draw how they think it's there and not how it actually is. Often people just draw the ears in, same with the eyes, matching. Whereas actually most people have one ear higher than the other, which might feel very alien to draw, but is correct. So again, I'll just remind you of that point again. If, like me, you've managed to cut the top of your head off, you can also use your ears as a reference point for your other features. Helpfully, I've missed the top of my head off on this, which isn't ideal. So we've had just over 5 minutes now. I'm not sure where you'll all be up to in your drawing, but within the next minute or so, I would maybe suggest that you move on to using your pen. I'm going to have a little bit longer just because I've been talking. I would suggest that if you haven't done so already, to now move on to using your pen to finalise those lines. Just refine the ones that you want to have as your final lines. If you're using pen already, then that's great, just carry on. If you want to just remain using pencil, that's fine too. This is about you and your experience of drawing. I'm just here to guide you through it, really. So I'm going to move on to using my pen now. Again, I'm still doing a fairly sketchy style in pen, to be honest. That tends to be my style when I'm drawing. I just prefer the way it looks, and in all honesty I find it easier to get the result that I want to get. I find it a little bit too pressure inducing to do photorealism, so unless I have to and I've been commissioned to, I generally don't. Yeah, and this is the enjoyment side of art for me, not the work side of art. So you've got about a minute and a half left, 2 minutes. For the purposes of this, I am doing the features first when I'm doing the refinements. Just because I'm probably not going to get this finished myself in 10 minutes, but that's fine. Just about a minute left now for you to just do those final little bits. If you're focusing in on one area to finish, or just focusing in on one area as we did in the third task, that's absolutely fine. I'm finding that my face shape has certainly changed following this lockdown period. I'm going to put that down to all the baking that I've been doing with my 4-year-old to keep her amused. Okay, we'll just go for another 30 seconds. Okie doke, and stop. So that was obviously a bit of a longer task, that one, for your final task of this session. As I said, feel free to continue with any of the pieces that you've done today, or feel free to watch this video back, just listen again to what I've said, or just give yourself a little bit more time on each task as you progress. As you wish. I mentioned that I'd show you a couple of progressions of how you can do things. So far you've seen me doing a very sketchy style, which, like I said, I prefer when I'm doing art for enjoyment, just because I find it a lot more free, it's a lot less contrived, and I just like drawing like that. You've got a lot more flexibility, and if one line's wrong it doesn't really matter, and you can go over it. Another way of enhancing portraiture is to add colour, which isn't natural colour. That's another thing that I quite like to do. So on both of these I've done a refined pencil drawing of the subject, and then afterwards I've added watercolour in just accent colours, not related to the portrait in any way. I've put some pink through her hair, and obviously orange on the side, and on this one, sorry, Royal Mail knocked on my door, so the dog went a bit mad there. Just to finish, yeah, the colours don't have to be relating to the skin tone or the hair colour at all. I just quite like to experiment with that. If you are using pencil, you can do the watercolour after your pencil. Same if you're using ballpoint pen. If you're going to use an inky pen, like I've been using, that isn't a biro, I would suggest doing a pencil sketch first, adding your colour, and then adding your ink afterwards. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the session today. I hope you've learnt something. I hope you've been inspired to maybe pick up a pencil again, or to draw again, or to just revisit an old hobby that you used to have that you've not done for a long time. So my 3 top tips would for getting back into art and using art as something that can enhance your own well-being is, first of all, find a style that suits you. Find a medium that suits you. That might be pencil, it might be pen, it might be watercolour, it might be chalk pastels, it could be anything. Find a medium that you enjoy using and find your own style. Today we've done quite a standard style of drawing, but then you can look at artists such as Picasso, who've obviously gone way off with how they do portraiture, and you can do that yourself if you want to have a go at that, just doing a big eye or one ear way higher than the other, things like that. But find a style that you enjoy, because art is for you and for your enjoyment. It's not about pleasing other people or their opinion or whether they think you're good or not. It doesn't matter if you're good or not. As long as you're enjoying it, then that's the main thing. The second thing I would say is practice. If you do want to do more refined work that looks the way it should, in terms of still life or portraiture or life drawing, I would say practice. I would say find a local group that you can join. I'm sure that many of the online groups that have been happening over this period will continue, possibly, because they've been a big success. And the third one is a practical one, but it's my mantra for drawing, and I think will be for a very long time, is draw what you see, not what you think you see. That's my main thing. I think one of the places where people go wrong is that they think they've seen something, they think that they know where it is, and they draw it how they think it is, rather than just re-looking constantly. And if you can, have a go at drawing without looking at your paper. Just look at your subject and see how you get on with that. And they're my little challenges for you to continue if you want to do some more drawing in your own time. So thank you very much. That's me done. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something from it. I hope you've learned something. I hope you've been inspired to draw again. And yeah, I hope you enjoy all the other things that the Student Association have put on for you over this weekend. All right, thank you.